Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Optimize CRM to Increase Sales. My name is Steve Waltz and I'm a Senior Sales Executive here on the Customer Engagement team at Innovia Consulting. This year I'm celebrating 30 years in the great field of selling. In those 30 years I've seen a lot of changes. Nothing like CRM. When I first started, I used to take my folders and stick them in my filing cabinet to keep record of my customers. And then I went to my Franklin planner and then my little black book. And in the last 8 years, I've been fortunate enough to use CRM, and it has really helped me increase my sales. A statistic to keep in mind is 30% of ERP systems never go live, and it's over double that for a failure rate for a successful CRM implementation. The goals of this program is to keep you on the right side of those numbers and to help you drive sales performance. What we're going to talk about today is understanding what CRM is and have a brief discussion about what is an ERP system. And we're going to talk about how selling is changing. And it's changing at a high rapid pace. I would say it's changed more in the last 5 years than the previous 25 years combined. And though that's changing, sales management is also changing and needs to adapt to the data that's available to you now, including CRM. We're going to discuss how you can leverage your data for improving sales, and most importantly, we're going to talk about how your organization should use CRM as a team. There's an old saying that the sales force might not be the company, but the company is a sales force. A question I get asked is, what is the difference between the two? Well, ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. It is an automation of business software that enables your data to flow between processes to enable you to run your business more efficiently, if set up correctly. It's a business management solution. Years ago when it first came out, it was mainly accounting and finance. And over the years, it has production, supply chain, complete operations, sales orders, invoicing, real-time live. If used correctly, the efficiencies can be profound, but also, if not set up correctly, it can bring your company to its knees. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Basically, it's to help you manage your business relationships and take it to the next level. So CRM will let you store and manage your prospect information, your customer information, contacts, leads, sales opportunities, all in one central location. It can be in the cloud, it can be on-prem. One thing to keep in mind is that they're not dependent on each other, but if used synergistically together, it can be a powerful growth engine for your sales. So can CRM help your company grow sales? Well, the answer is absolutely. CRM is going to allow you to access your information on a single platform immediately so everybody in your company can have access to it. It's going to allow you to track and measure your activities in the progress of how things are going. Also, CRM is going to allow you to build stronger relationships, especially with your current customers, because you're going to be able to have that information. Customer service can put their notes in. You can put your notes in. Other people can see where things are progressing. And by doing that, you take better care of your customers. It's going to allow you to put better plans in to win new ones, and by doing that, it's going to allow you to accelerate business growth. If you go to Salesforce.com's website, on the landing page it shows a 37% increase in sales after you implement CRM. That's a huge number. That's over a third increase in sales. There's been some changes going on in how sales are done. And what I'd like to do is really kind of get into understanding salespeople, but also understanding the role of salespeople within the organization and how the organization looks at sales. And what I have in the upper right-hand corner is a picture of a relief pitcher from the Chicago Cubs, C.J. Edwards, Carl Edwards Jr. And that picture is basically him flying, going around after Game 7 of the World Series with the W flag. As you know, the Cubs broke their 108-year drought. They had the lead. They blew the lead, And after a rain delay, they came back and won. And the W stands for the win. It's about winning. So the goal of this is to help you win more business. If you remember that game, the manager, Joe Madden, said even before the game that he had a plan in place, that he wasn't going to put another pitcher in an unclean inning, and he had these other things he was going to follow. But during the game, he changed what he said he was going to do. They blew the lead and almost lost. Theo Epstein, the president and architect of the Chicago Cubs, was asked a couple days later about some of the moves his manager made. And what Theo stated was, normally I'm a process-based person. You put the right steps and processes in place and follow it to lead to the ultimate goal. But in this instance, I became an outcome-based person because they won. And the reason I brought that up is that understanding salespeople, they're outcome-based. You know, the goal is to get the sale. And there used to be this old adage that sales forgives all sins. That really doesn't work as much today as it did years ago. Sales leadership and leadership within a company, well, they're more process-based. We want you to do this, this, and this. Well, now that you're going to be putting your activities into the system that everybody has access of seeing, is forcing salespeople to be more process-based. You know, a lot of them are used to kind of just basically doing their own thing and trying to get to sales. Well, the goal of this is for the company to win more business. And by following this, you need to follow some processes for documentation for follow-up. But also, on the other hand, senior leadership and management needs to understand that it can't be strictly based on a process. They need to move a little bit more towards the middle on outcome also. There's been some research done by Harvard Business Review to find out what qualities make a good salesperson, what drives salespeople. And they found these two qualities that make a good salesperson. And number one is empathy. The ability to feel, to put yourself in the shoes of the customer. You know, maybe things are going fine and then your key contact is left. Or maybe something has changed and the money that was budgeted is now not available, it gets pushed back. But also the salesperson has to put themselves in their company's shoes because maybe you're planning resources for that or already had it budgeted and all these different things. So it's kind of working on both sides. Number two is a strong ego drive, the need to conquer, right? Nothing like the winning of a sale. And it's really needed because there's a lot of failure in selling, a lot more failure than success. And if you think about baseball, as a hitter, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're an all-star. If you fail 8 out of 10 times, you're probably going to be looking for another job. That one, you know, why is that number so profound? Well, if you think about it, that's a 50% more increase. So let's talk about what drives salespeople. And when I first got into the research, I was expecting to see more of money, incentives, recognition. But in the study, they found that clarity of task was number one. Because no one likes to be told what to do, but people need to know what to do. Steve Jobs said, why would you hire highly talented people and tell them what to do? Tell them what the end game is and let them tell you how to get there. The second thing on here is expectations. What do you expect me to do? Do you expect me to make so many sales calls? Do you expect me to hit this number, a quota? You know, what is it laid out? What are your expectations of salespeople? And that makes sense because they kind of work synergistically together. So let's talk about ways that top salespeople impact selling. Over my years in working with and consulting with senior leaderships and sales teams, I always like to talk about the top 10, top 20%. You know, the 80-20 rule is so prevalent in life. You know, why does 20% of the people do the majority of the work or get the stuff done? It's just kind of the way it is, right? So positive attitude was number one. You know, they're the ultimate team player. I like to call these people GSDs. They're get stuff done people. Their follow-up is impeccable. I was telling my two boys that if you're looking to get a job done, if the manager has to look at one person and wonder if he gets it done, and knows the other person's going to get it done, who's going to get it? A top salesperson is also the CEO of their own territory. They own it. At the end of the day, they take full responsibility. Especially in spin selling, you talk about when you sell a larger item, there's a lot of contacts and a lot of processes that take place. And somebody needs to own the process. Maybe an email wasn't returned, or maybe some dates were changed and you're hopeful. That's where that follow-up becomes so important, because there could be times you go sideways. Being a person of excellence. I was told early in my career that, Steve, everything you do is a signature of who you are. If you're consistently late, they're going to view you as a late person. If you're early and on time and your follow-up's impeccable, that's the person they want to deal with. All right, top salespeople grow by learning. It's unfortunate to know that only 10% of salespeople actually read books on selling or go to seminars or like this, attend a webinar. Consistently reinventing themselves. I'm not selling the same way now as I did early in my career. Things have just changed. And understanding change is so important, and a capitalized change. Even Darwin said it's not the strongest of the species or the smartest of the species that survive. It's the ones that are able to adapt to change. And the change here is this wonderful new opportunity we have using relationship management. One thing we've learned, and you will learn and see, is that specific sales activities can lead to specific results. By doing certain things, it's going to help you get to where you want to go. And utilizing activities are going to be crucial and key for you to be successful. It's going to be able to help you put in to-dos, reminders, and now marketing can even put their campaigns available for the sales force online. This is going to give you a great opportunity to enhance your call planning, and really putting in writing, putting steps in place are going to help you get to your goal. When it's in writing, it has that much more influence on helping you get to where you want to go. So let's talk about the sales management for the last 100 centuries, last century, the last 100 years. Years ago, my father worked for a company called NCR, National Cash Register. And if you really research it, they developed this whole sales management process that people have been using for a very long time. You hire and train salespeople, and if they don't perform, you fire them. It's the old Velcro theory. You throw some against the wall, some are going to stick, some aren't. Well, you assign territories, and then you tell them how to sell, right? And then you have this wonderful term that came up, quotas, right? You assign them a quota, and then you pay them for selling. Have some sales contests to incentivize them to move things, and then have a sales meeting to kind of review what you did and talk about where you're going. And a lot of companies still do it, and it's a good foundation. But really, nothing has changed in the last 100 years until this new vehicle came along, the relationship management. So how does that work going into the new century? Because now we're getting into contact management, and contact management is king. Your contacts are king. And then you have campaigns, like we talked about earlier, marketing campaigns. And you have these great visuals. You can now see your pipeline or a sales funnel right there. You can see it at the company level, at a district or rep level, and even drill down to individual companies. And that has these wonderful things called opportunities. Because before it used to be, what have we won and what we haven't won. And now you can get more of, well, these are the opportunities we have. Maybe we're 20% into it or 40% or however you want to grade it out in the process, which will allow you to help put together a better plan on how to get there and give you an idea how your pipeline is. And that leads into metrics, right? What do you want to measure? What's important to you? Because now we have this data available to us that can help us guide us on determining what metrics we want to put together. And we'll talk about that. Which leads into account management. Account management is so important using CRM and these things you can control, sales activities. So what I want to do here is kind of talk about your business model. Has your business model adapted to the technology that's available today? And what I thought I would do is use a car dealership for an example. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, there's a picture of the family guy walking on a lot, the salesman in the plaid jacket. How you doing? Welcome. What do I got to do to put you in this car today, right? And it's how it went for a long time. But now if you look in the lower left-hand corner, there's the guy from the commercial from TrueCar. He's outside in the dealer's lot shopping using his smartphone. I mean, in the own dealer's lot. So he's getting his pricing right then and there. So if you think about a car dealership, most of them are family owned. So they've been passed down from generation to generation. So is the older generation still involved? Are they still using the same old commercials and marketing? Do you have older salespeople that were, talking about how to do the meet and greet and the walk-arounds, all this stuff from 20 years ago, teaching the older ways versus the ways that people want to buy now? The good news is, found that most car dealers had an internet department and a website. The bad news is, most of them were using the old model. They still had to go to a sales manager and get back with them days later where the buyer's already bought a car. So the key here is that buyers don't want to buy the way they bought years ago when their parents and grandparents bought cars. They don't need to go to the dealership to get a brochure and learn about the car. It's all available on the web. And most of the time, the people that are doing research know as much, if not more, than the salesperson. So it really gets into a changing framework for sales management. Like, when is the last time you looked at your business model? A couple months ago, I was at a Microsoft meeting, and they stated that 44% of the Fortune 500 companies felt that their business model would be outdated in 5 years. So almost half of the best companies in the United States say what they're doing now will not work in 5 years. So it's so important to constantly take a look at the way things are going, the way things are being done. And they also have their own reporting. Everybody likes to dump these reports into Excel, and some people actually have over 20 sales reports. I mean, what do you measure on 20 sales reports? I put here 3 as typical because normally that's what people usually go to, is 3 reports to get their information. You need to ask why you're using these reports. Also, this technology is available, right? You have the CRM, you have your ERP system, and even this new tool, Wonderful Power BI, Business Intelligence, to help you get more visuals. And those are large investments. We got to utilize them correctly. And when you set up your CRM system, it's going to allow you to help focus on what you can control. And a lot of this discussion is to focus on what you can and can't control. And that'll allow you to simplify your sales process, because we want to keep it simple and allow for more training and coaching from your sales management team to your sales team. So I think this slide right here is probably the most important slide I have on this presentation. And if you look at the cartoon here, right, everybody's busy. Can't stop right now. We got to keep moving forward. But all you have to do is take a look around, put those wheels on, and it just goes so much smoother, right? So if you think about how things were prior to CRM or the internet, the only way that management and leadership really got a view of what the sales force was doing was from hearing it from sales management. This is what we're doing as a team. These are our numbers. These are our goals. This is what we got. Well, now when things are put in activities and opportunities, management now has this ability to see what the salespeople are doing where they never really did. They have this detailed information. So CRM can be your frenemy, right? If you view it as an opportunity, it's going to be your friend. If you view it as micromanaging, it's not going to be your friend. What happens is those that really didn't have the access to this information start looking at it over and over again, sometimes on a daily basis. It's like your smartphone. Looking at the data becomes very addicting. You want to see what's going on. Did they make 20 calls this week? Did they make 40 this month? Whatever they want to see. And we need to be careful, because we don't want to fall into a culture of inspection. Okay, we want to fall into a culture of coaching. Because if you use the data for compliance, it's going to create a lot of anxiety. Okay, let's say a sales team has outside territories. Some are large, some aren't. Some have large accounts, some have smaller accounts. It depends on the geographic areas. There could be fluctuation on that, so people need to be aware of that. But also maybe somebody aren't making the calls that they should make the calls, or documenting the calls they need to make. Those are coaching conversations. I notice when you put the calls in, we're able to use that information to improve our customer service and really help us do our forecasting. Is there ways that we can work together to get this improved? Those are the conversations that need to happen. If you get into you're supposed to make your 10 calls, then you only made 8 this week. Why is that? Well, it depends on the situation, but normally those aren't the conversation you want to have on a consistent basis. Those are the one-off conversations that you want to have. Because as I showed you earlier in that slide, the goal is winning. You want to win accounts. You want to win the business. So this huge opportunity can allow the sales management group to work with the sales reps on account planning and productive sales activities and how you want these things documented. Because things are real time when they're put in there. So it needs to be really, the plan needs to be put in place prior to going live on the CRM on what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. We also need to choose the right metrics. What do you want to measure, right? What metrics will be used for measuring your sales? Now, I'm old school. I believe if you're going to measure something, the goal is to measure it so you can improve it. But the question you need to ask yourself when choosing your metrics is, can you manage the metric? And that's something that hasn't really been done before, because everybody wants to measure revenue, closing rate, market share, but you can't control those. You can influence them, but you can't control them. Can you control the number of calls a rep makes? I think so. The number of activities? Yes, you can. So those are the things we really need to focus on so we can fine-tune those and have more control. Over the years, I can't tell you the amount of sales management groups I've talked with or sales teams, and the typical management response is when they hire their salespeople to tell them, I need you to meet your quota. You need to increase your sales. You need to make this many calls. Get your quota. And most salespeople are sitting back going, well, if I knew how, why don't you teach me how? Show me how. And so you have this great coaching opportunity where you can now show them how to use the data to achieve it. Because everybody seems to skip a step when they do that. You just tell somebody, we'll hire more salespeople, or we'll make more sales calls, or we're going to talk a little bit more on other ways of doing it to help you get better results. Because we want to focus on what's important, right? What objectives actually make sense? We don't want to be a checkbox organization, just do something for the sake of doing it. We want to be able to put our plan in place and find out, what's going to make this move forward. And when you write it down, it's going to allow you to help you reach it and make a plan. And you're more apt to reach it when you have it in writing and able to follow through with it versus just saying you're going to do it. One of the ways you want to set this up for your account planning is to have this discussion with your customers or your prospects, utilizing ideal language for success. And the reason I have Patrick here from SpongeBob with that look, that's the look I get from people. Huh? What does that mean? Well, it's something that most salespeople don't do, and it's kind of surprising because you think, salespeople should be good at asking questions. But ideal language is really setting the account up for success. And how do you do that? Well, we don't assume it. We need to ask. So, Mr. Customer, what does success look like to you? And the customer actually has to pause, put some thought into it, and then tell you, right? And then a great follow-up question is, what's going to stop us from getting there? What resources do you need? What resources can we do to help you, right? Do your people get it? I can't tell you how many times I'll speak with the leadership group and then speak with the sales team and see the disconnect on understanding what the same goal, what the goals are. Are they aligned? What would they say if I said, what are your goals in the company? Would they say the same thing as leadership? But as you're working with customers, you want to build the ROI. And each step, and discuss each step on how to get there and hold each other accountable, because it's a partnership, right? We're the trusted advisor. We're trying to help them get to where they want to go. So once we do this and kind of get an idea of what their initiatives are, what their goals are, it's going to allow us to put together a good plan. But we also need to understand what we control and what we can't control, right? Because very simply, you cannot control revenue or the outcome of business result. We can influence it, but at the end of the day, if you tell your sales rep, I need 300,000 more by the end of the year, well, can they control that? They can't, they can't control if somebody's going to buy or not. They can influence. So there's things you can control, and that's what we're going to talk about. What can you control, right? There's a couple things you can control. One is the business objectives, and the other is sales activities. I would say the business objectives are what are skipped the most, because you have the result, you want to get more revenue, go make more sales calls, more activities. So identifying the business objectives are key to making CRM successful for you. So here I have a chart of success. It's a three-step process, and as you can see, the arrows are going down, and the next slide I have the arrows going sideways to help simplify it more. But I wanted to get in the weeds a little bit here because we want to identify the results of what you want to achieve with the salesperson or as a sales team. Right? Do you want to increase revenue? Do you want to increase market share? And then the second thing here is what I just said a little bit ago is normally skipped, the objectives. You need to select and quantify the best way or the best objectives on how to get there. Right? You might want to get new customers, new prospects. Maybe you have a new product launch coming out. Maybe a review of current products. And then when you figure out that route, now you can put your objectives together or your sales activities. And you want to do the sales activities that make the most sense for what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, it sounds simple, right? But it's really not done a lot. And then you want to manage them relentlessly. Only 10% of the salespeople follow up more than once. 80% of the sales are made between the 5th and the 12th sales contact. And yet, not even 10% of people make more than 5 calls. Those are profound numbers. So this is going to help you get there. So I take the chart of success and I kind of put it together and making a plan. So let's talk about these categories. The business result. This is the end game. This is what we want to achieve. We want to increase revenue, gain market share, increase margin could be on there. Now the sales objectives. How are you going to do that? We talked about new products, maybe new customers. Maybe we realign territories. Maybe we're losing customers. Maybe we need to improve our customer service. And then we put the activities in place that are going to help us get there. Product training, right? Maybe better call planning, different type of prospecting calls, better prospecting calls. And I have a thing on here called SMART goals, which we're going to talk about a little bit. So I got some examples here to kind of show you just how easy this is. So here's some samples of creating plans within your account plans. Let's say we want to increase revenue by adding new customers. So if I go back, you can see here that the business result would be increased revenue, and the sales objective is by adding new customers. So the activity would be increase the number of prospecting calls. That was simple. But if you're going to increase the number of prospecting calls, you're probably going to take time away from other things. So we need to understand and make sure that's the right route we want to go. Secondly, we want to increase revenue by selling more to our current customers. So what are activities we can do for that? Maybe we can be better at account planning, getting back to that ideal language. Where do they really want to go? Maybe there's some products that we're not really well versed on, and maybe we bring in a product expert. Example might be, let's say you're selling stoves to restaurants. And what are the main objectives for everybody? We don't have the time and we don't have the money. But yet the pain conversation is, what happens if your stove goes out on 7 o'clock on a Friday afternoon? What's that going to do to your business? So in essence, you get to the point where maybe you bring in a couple of manufacturing reps that have stoves and set it up for them to kind of go over the features and benefits and what their stoves can do. That'd be a great activity. And then you can set up a follow-up activity to see how that call went, and then determine at that point what your next activity is going to be. Maybe they like that brand of stove, or maybe they didn't, they want to see the next one. Then this allows you to move your plan and the flow very smoothly. And we also need to understand that account planning is enhanced by using SMART goals. And what are SMART goals? Well, SMART goals that you create basically are goals that are very clear. They're specific. Every one of these letters has a meaning. It's a specific goal. Like, why do you want to do it? Are you just doing it for the sake of trying to do it, or is it going to help them meet their goals and their plans and also your company's? Is it measurable? Are you able to track the progress of where you're at in the process? And is it attainable? I mean, we have reach goals. Everybody has reach goals, but is this one able to be accomplished, do you think? And is it relevant? Is it worth doing, right? And also, the last part would be timely. We need to have a timestamp on it, a deadline, because if you don't have a time where this activity is going to be done, then you really have no sense of urgency. And we kind of need to establish that, and it's a workable document. Let's say let's get back to the stoves. Let's say you're on your SMART goal. Your goal is to have the manufacturer go in by the end of April. Well, let's say that the rep can't make it now till May. Well, you just move it out till May. And then when they get that done, then you put the next step in with the timestamp on that. They didn't like that stove. We need to bring another manufacturer in. So let's get the next manufacturer in there by the end of May. So you're allowed to basically keep that moving forward. So as we're doing our account plans, which is so important in CRM, it becomes to where this is probably the most important documentation when you're doing it is your account plans, because you need to have a list of key contacts for each account. Your contacts are so important. Names, extensions, emails, maybe even links to their LinkedIn profile, whatever social media things that the company belongs to. Also, maybe they have their own website pictures of who their leadership is or whoever you're dealing with. And then you're able to put in your activities. And you're able to put notes in. Let's say you met with somebody 2 months ago and had a great hour conversation. I don't know about you, but if you ask me 2 months later, I'm not going to be able to recall. You're able to put your notes in for not just you to see, but other people in your organization. Maybe somebody in your delivery or service or customer service can now go in and look and see what that you did 2 months ago, or maybe you can go in because there's an issue and see that they went in this morning and did something. It's going to allow you to put in follow-up activities. We talked about the timestamp. Maybe we want to follow up with them in 2 weeks after we just had a call with them. So 2 weeks later, when you open up your CRM, there's the activity. We talked about SMART goals. Maybe instead of doing SMART goals for all your accounts, we look at doing it for key accounts. And you can go online and Google SMART goals, and there's all sorts of charts and information out there on how to do it. But when you're determining your goals, you want to establish what are drivers and what are barriers. What's going to drive the customer to want to do this? Like, let's talk about the restaurant. Well, what's going to drive them is if they don't and the oven breaks, it could shut their business down. The barriers would be they don't have the money budgeted for this period of time. So maybe we can talk about financing. But we need to kind of know both what's working for and against us. And that's going to allow us to plan our activities to keep things moving forward to get to the next step. So I would recommend that your top accounts have SMART goals, and then you review them with your manager. If you're the salesperson, you review them with your manager, but also the company should have a couple key accounts that have SMART goals, and the sales manager should be able to review that with the leadership team to make sure they're involved and they got skin in the game to kind of see what the salespeople are doing. Because it's, as we talked about before, CRM is for the company, not just for the sales team. And when you review your SMART goals on a regular basis, maybe quarterly meetings or maybe even remotely, it's going to allow you to kind of get up to date and maybe have other ideas you can do. And even if you do it with the other sales reps, if you're a salesperson, that can have huge advantages. And when you document all this stuff, the great thing is it's going to allow you to have better quarterly and annual reviews with your accounts. I don't know if you have quarterly and annual reviews. I highly recommend it, especially with key accounts. I remember years ago, I called in a large nursing home chain, and they felt that they weren't getting the service that they wanted. Was able to document all the in-services, all the follow-up with the accounts that I had along with others. And I had that with me. So when I reviewed all that data with the leadership of that group, then it all changed because I had the documentation to support that. And that allowed a great quarterly review, and it set other things in place to help them with their initiatives. And then an annual review can be helped with that also, but really a chance to hold each other accountable on getting them to their goals and initiatives. And like I said before, to have the skin in the game. When you ask somebody, where they're at, where they want to go, and then hold each other accountable, that's when great things happen for both. So let's talk about some stops and starts of CRM, if you're using it or thinking about using it. In the first slide, the first part of the slide is focusing on outcomes. It's hard to ask somebody to stop focusing on outcomes. But as we talked about earlier, you really can't control revenue or your closing rate. We can influence it. I mean, it's something that's there, but we need to start focusing on what we can manage, right? We can manage our account plans, our activities, our impeccable follow-up. We want to stop using data as a motivator. I noticed that the 10 calls you're supposed to make, you put them all in our Friday afternoon. Well, that's an opportunity. You use the data to coach. Maybe they're on the road all week and that's why they put them in there. Or you can talk about, when you put those activities in sooner, it allows us as a company to manage the customer so much more effectively. You can stop asking for more activity. We need to identify the right activity. And that's the great thing about having these account plans. If we want to do this, as we talked about on the stove, by having the manufacturers come in, that's going to basically leverage each one of those and kind of narrow it down. And those are good activities versus just, I'm going to go in and see how things are going with their stove, right? Also, we want to stop talking about how we're going to use CRM. We want to leverage the data and leverage the information in CRM. So I hope that was helpful for you. And what this webinar was for is basically to have you understand as an organization to make it successful. And what we're going to be doing here in a couple of months, our director, Tom Dorn, is going to be doing a follow-up webinar on basically how to set up the CRM within NAV. Even if you're not using NAV, you're using another CRM, Tom's going to show how to set up activities and campaigns to kind of get in the weeds a little bit more. Another thing you can do is you can reach out to your account manager if you have more information on the CRM that's maybe if you're currently using Navision that has it, or if you're using another one like Salesforce or Dynamic CRM. Be more than happy to see what we can do to help you on that. And also you can feel free to contact me at my email address here, swalt@innovia.com, and my phone number is listed before. I want to thank everyone for attending the webinar today, and please reach out if we can answer any questions. Have a great day.